The citation was dated 3 hours before I got home. $15,000 in fines for operating an illegal campground. Except I didn't own a campground. I owned 40 acres of Texas lakefront that the previous owner, my Uncle Ray, had leased to Stillwater RV Resort for 30 years. The lease expired 2 months ago. I didn't renew it. And now, standing in my driveway at dusk on a Thursday in September, I was looking at 17 recreational vehicles parked in neat rows across what used to be open meadow, every single one of them registered under my county permit number, and not one of them there this morning when I left for Austin. Someone had moved an entire RV park onto my land in 8 hours. Drop a comment. Tell me where you're from and whether you've ever come home to find something that wasn't supposed to be there. I need to back up. My name is Miles Garrett. I'm 34. I spent the last 6 years working IT contracts in Dallas, living in a 1-bedroom apartment with no dishwasher and a parking lot view, saving everything I could because Uncle Ray had told me when I was 16 that if I wanted the land, I'd have to earn it. He didn't mean I'd have to buy it from him. He meant I'd have to prove I'd take care of it the way he had. Ray died in May. The land came to me free and clear, 40 acres on the south shore of Lake Benson, Pine and Post Oak, a 1/4 mile of private waterfront, and a 2-bedroom cabin Ray built himself in 1987. The cabin had a metal roof, a stone fireplace, and a porch that faced the water. It was the best thing I'd ever inherited. It also came with a commercial land use permit issued in 1994, back when Ray leased the North Pasture to a man named Carl Drennan, who ran Stillwater RV Resort. 22 full hookup sites, clean bathhouse, boat ramp, the kind of place that attracted retirees and weekenders who wanted quiet water and didn't mind driving 40 minutes from the nearest Walmart. The lease was good until August 31st. I let it expire. Not out of spite. I just didn't want to run a campground. I wanted the land back the way Ray had it before Drennan. Open, quiet mine. I sent Drennan a certified letter in June informing him I wouldn't be renewing. He didn't reply. On September 1st, I drove out to find the RV sites empty, the gravel scraped clean, and the bathhouse dark. I thought that was the end of it. I was back in Dallas finishing a server migration contract when the trouble started. It started with a phone call from the Lakewood Shores Homeowners Association, a woman named Diane Merritt, vice president of the board, who told me in the calm, declarative tone of someone used to being obeyed that my campground was no longer in compliance with community standards and that I had 14 days to submit a remediation plan. I told her I didn't have a campground. She told me the RV resort on my northern boundary was clearly visible from association properties and that the board had documented ongoing violations. I told her again, I didn't renew the lease. The campground's closed. She paused, said she'd review the matter, and hung up. That was 2 weeks ago. The second call came yesterday. Diane Merritt again. She informed me that the Stillwater RV Resort remained operational, that it was now subject to an expedited enforcement action under Article 12 of the HOA covenants, and that I would be receiving formal notice. I told her, slower this time, that I had terminated the lease, that Carl Drennan no longer had authorization to operate anything on my land, and that if RVs were still there, they were trespassing. She said, Mr. Garrett, the permit is under your name. The liability is yours. Then she hung up. I should have driven out that night. I didn't. I had a contract deadline, and I told myself it was a paperwork mix-up, something I could fix with a few emails and a week's patience. I was wrong. I got home at 6:15 Thursday evening, turned off the county road onto the gravel drive that runs through the pines to the cabin, and saw them. 17 RVs in 6 rows, full hookups, awnings extended, camp chairs set. Out. A few with propane grills smoking in the dusk. Pickup trucks parked beside fifth wheels. A dog on a lead. Music coming from somewhere in the back row. I parked in front of the cabin and sat there for a full minute, hands still on the wheel. Then I got out and walked north toward the sites. A man in his 60s, sunburned, wearing a Grateful Dead t-shirt, waved at me from beside a Class A motorhome. Evening, he called. You the new manager? I stopped. I'm the landowner. He smiled. Oh good. We were told the ownership changed, but that we'd still have access under the same terms. Carl set it all up before he left. Carl Drennan. Yeah, nice guy. Said you'd be taking over operations, but that everything was locked in with the county and the HOA. I felt something cold settle in my chest. What HOA? Lakewood Shores. They annexed the campground last month. Sent out the whole packet. I didn't say anything. I turned and walked back to the cabin, went inside, and found the yellow envelope on the kitchen table where I'd left my mail stacked unopened for 3 days. The citation was on top. $15,000. Violations listed: unpermitted expansion, non-compliance with setback requirements, failure to register with HOA Land Use Committee. I sat down. I read it twice. Then I called the one person I knew who wouldn't tell me I was overreacting. My lawyer, Sam Pohl, answered on the second ring. I told him what I was looking at. He was quiet for 5 seconds. Then he said, "Don't talk to anyone. I'm pulling the county records tonight." Sam Pohl arrived at the cabin at 7 the next morning with a briefcase, a thermos of coffee, and the expression of a man who had spent the previous night reading documents that made him angry. He set the briefcase on the kitchen table, opened it, and laid out 3 files in a row like he was presenting evidence at trial. "Miles," he said, "you've been annexed." I stared at him. What does that mean? It means Lakewood Shores HOA filed a boundary extension petition with the county in July, claiming your northern parcel as part of their community land use jurisdiction. It was approved administratively. No hearing. You were never notified because the paperwork listed Carl Drennan as the primary operator and the mailing went to his old P.O. box. I felt my jaw tighten. They annexed my land without telling me. Not the land itself. The commercial use. It's a jurisdictional claim, not a title claim. But the effect is the same. They're asserting regulatory authority over anything that happens on that parcel. And because the campground operated under a commercial permit in your name, they're holding you responsible for compliance. There is no campground. I terminated the lease. Sam pulled a single sheet from the second file. This is a lease assignment agreement dated August 29th, signed by Carl Drennan, transferring operational control of Stillwater RV Resort to Lakewood Shores Community Services LLC, a subsidiary of the HOA. It names you as the permit holder and references your county land use license as the authorizing instrument. I read it. My name was on it. My permit number. Carl's signature at the bottom. I didn't sign this. You didn't have to. The lease allowed assignment with written notice to the permit holder. Carl sent you notice. It's in the certified mail log. You just didn't receive it because you were in Dallas and mail forwarding hadn't updated. I felt something sharp rising in my throat. So they transferred the lease to themselves, moved RVs onto my land, and stuck me with the liability? That's the shape of it. I stood up and walked to the window. Across the meadow, I could see a woman in a sun hat watering a planter box outside her RV. A man was setting up a folding table. It looked peaceful. It looked like I was running a campground. What do I do? Sam leaned back in his chair. You revoke the permit. I turned. I can what? You're the permit holder. The county issued it to you, not to Carl, not to the HOA. You have the legal authority to suspend or terminate it at any time for any reason. Once the permit is revoked, there's no legal basis for commercial RV occupancy on your land. Every vehicle becomes an unpermitted structure. The HOA loses its enforcement leverage because the activity they're regulating ceases to exist. And the people parked out there? They'll have to leave. It's not your problem where they go. They entered into an agreement with an entity that didn't have your authorization to operate. That's on the HOA, not you. I thought about the man in the Grateful Dead shirt, the dog on the lead, the woman with the sun hat. They didn't do anything wrong. No, but neither did you. And if you don't act, you're going to be liable for $15,000 in fines, with more coming every week they're here. I sat back down. How fast can we move? I can file the revocation with the county this afternoon. It takes effect immediately. After that, you post notice on the property. 72 hours to vacate. Anyone still here after that is trespassing, and you can involve the sheriff. Will the HOA fight it? Sam smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. They'll try. But here's the part they didn't think through. The boundary extension they filed only works if the commercial use continues. If you revoke the permit, the land reverts to private agricultural use, which is outside their jurisdiction entirely. They annexed a campground. You're about to turn it back into a pasture. I looked at the citation still sitting on the table. $15,000. For something I didn't authorize, didn't operate, and didn't want. Do it, I said. Sam pulled a pre-drafted revocation form from the third file. I had a feeling you'd say that. I signed it. He scanned it with his phone, emailed it to the county clerk's office, and called to confirm receipt. The whole process took 11 minutes. It's done, he said. Now we post notice. We printed 20 copies of the revocation notice on plain paper, laminated them at the cabin with the machine Ray used for trail maps, and stapled them to every utility post across the campground. Each notice included the permit number, the revocation date, the effective termination of all commercial activity, and a 72-hour vacate order. The man in the Grateful Dead shirt saw us posting the third one. He walked over, read it, and his face changed. "You're shutting it down?" "I never opened it," I said. "The lease expired. This operation was unauthorized. But we paid. 3 months up front." "Not to me." He looked at the notice again, then back at me. "Carl said this was all cleared." Carl lied. The man walked away without another word. By noon, the campground was buzzing. People gathered in small groups near the bathhouse, voices rising. I saw someone on a phone, pacing near a fifth wheel. Another man knocked on the cabin door. I didn't answer. At 2 o'clock, a white SUV pulled up the drive. Diane Merritt stepped out, 60-something, blonde, wearing a linen blazer and the expression of someone used to being taken seriously. She walked directly to the porch. "Mr. Garrett, we need to talk." "No," I said through the screen door. "We don't. You've just violated a county-approved land use agreement." I revoked my own permit. "I didn't violate anything. You're displacing 17 families. You moved them onto my land without my permission. You displaced them." Her jaw tightened. "This isn't over." "Yeah," I said. "It is." She got back in the SUV and left. Sam called at 4 o'clock. The HOA just filed an emergency injunction to stop the eviction. Hearings Monday morning. I closed my eyes. Of course they did. "Miles, they're going to argue you're acting in bad faith, that you're using the permit as a weapon, that the revocation is retaliatory." "Is it?" "Doesn't matter. You're still within your rights." I looked out the window at the rows of RVs, the smoke from the grills, the lights coming on as dusk settled over the lake. "Get ready," I said. "This is about to get worse." The Benson County Courthouse smelled like floor wax and old wood. The hearing room was small, 20 seats in the gallery, half of them filled with RV park residents who had driven in to watch. Diane Merritt sat at the petitioner's table with a lawyer I didn't recognize, a sharp-dressed man in his 40s with a briefcase that looked more expensive than my truck. Sam and I sat across the aisle. He had a single folder in front of him, thin, organized, and the calm posture of someone who'd already won and was just waiting for the other side to figure it out. Judge Alan Frost entered at 9 o'clock and wasted no time. "This is a petition for emergency injunction to halt eviction proceedings on property at 1547 Lakeshore Drive. Ms. Merritt, you're up." Diane's attorney stood. His name was Roger Pitts, and he opened with the tone of someone arguing a clear moral position. He described the 17 families who had entered into good faith agreements, paid fees, and were now facing displacement due to what he called an arbitrary and retaliatory revocation of a long-standing commercial permit. He cited continuity of use. He cited the HOA's boundary extension as a validly approved regulatory framework. He cited the county's interest in stable land use. What he didn't cite was a single legal instrument giving the HOA authority to operate a campground on my private land. Judge Frost looked at Sam. "Mr. Poole." Sam stood, opened his folder, and placed a single document on the lectern. "Your Honor, this is the permit in question. Issued to Miles Garrett in 1994 under his name as transferee from the original permit holder. It authorizes commercial RV occupancy on parcel December 3rd, 45. Mr. Garrett is the sole permit holder. He revoked it on September 20th, as is his right under county code. The revocation is valid. The injunction has no basis." It's cut in. "Your Honor, the revocation was clearly retaliatory. Against whom?" Sam didn't raise his voice. "Mr. Garrett terminated a lease in June. 2 months later, he discovered an entity operating on his land without authorization, using his permit as cover, and generating liabilities in his name. He revoked the permit to stop unauthorized activity. That's not retaliation. That's property rights." Judge Frost leaned forward. "Mr. Pitts, does your client hold any lease or easement agreement with Mr. Garrett?" Pitts hesitated. "We hold an operational assignment from the previous lessee that Mr. Garrett didn't sign and didn't authorize. The assignment clause in the original lease expired on August 31st, Sam said. The lease terminated. Any assignment made after that date is void." Frost looked at the file in front of him. "And the HOA's annexation petition, What's the basis for that? Community land use jurisdiction over commercial activities within. On private land? Pitts paused. The petition was approved by the county planning board. Administratively, Sam said, without notice to the landowner. And the jurisdiction only applies if the commercial use is active. Mr. Garrett revoked the permit. There's no commercial use. The annexation is moot. The room was very quiet. Judge Frost set down his pen. Mr. Pitts, I'm not seeing an injunctable harm here. Your client entered into agreements without securing the landowner's consent. That's a contract dispute between your client and the people they took money from. It's not Mr. Garrett's problem. Pitts tried once more. Your Honor, these are families who were misled by Ms. Merritt's organization, not by Mr. Garrett. Frost closed the file. Injunction denied. The permit revocation stands. This hearing is concluded. He stood and left. The gallery emptied slowly. Diane Merritt did not look at me as she walked out. Sam closed his folder. That's it. You're clear. I sat there for a moment, feeling the weight of the last 72 hours lift. What happens to them? The RV owners? They'll file claims against the HOA for fraud and misrepresentation. They'll probably settle. It's not your concern anymore. We walked out into the September sun. The courthouse lawn was bright and still. Across the parking lot, I saw the man in the Grateful Dead shirt leaning against his truck. He nodded once. I nodded back. By Wednesday, the campground was empty. 17 RVs gone, the gravel swept, the hookup posts standing like grave markers in an open field. I walked the meadow that evening with a beer in my hand and felt the land settle back into itself. Sam called Thursday morning. The HOA's threatening a civil suit for lost revenue. Let them. They won't win, but they'll make noise. I've got documentation, recordings, and a judge who already ruled in my favor. Let them make noise. He laughed. You sound like your uncle. I thought about Ray, about the way he taught me to read a property line, to know what I owned and defend it quietly. Yeah, I said. I guess I do. The civil suit never materialized. Diane Merritt resigned from the HOA board in November, citing personal reasons. The boundary extension was formally withdrawn by the county in December after I submitted a land use restoration petition with Sam's help. I had the gravel scraped and reseeded the meadow with native bluestem and clover. By spring, you couldn't tell there'd ever been a campground there. I sit on the porch most evenings now, watching the light move across the water the way Ray used to. The land is quiet. The land is mine. And every time I see that open meadow where the RVs used to be, I think about the single signature I put on a revocation form and how much weight a name can carry when you know exactly where the line is. If someone tries to take what's yours, don't argue. Don't negotiate. Know what you own. Know what you're entitled to do. Then do it. The rest is just noise.